Hey everybody, so today's gonna be a little bit different, and I'm gonna be doing this video update, and I'm gonna be recording some voiceovers and stuff, which I've never done on a stream before, so we'll see how that goes. And so because of that, there won't be any music, but eventually I'll have some music. Chat is open, so if you're interested in saying hi, feel free. But yeah, I'm about to do some voiceovers, so let's get into that. Yo. Okay, this is the... Oh, Lunan, what's up? Let's see. I'm going to... Actually... Oops. There we go. This version is different. I can't scroll to zoom. I'm good. How's it going with you? I guess today's a holiday, but I also didn't. I mean, here it is. But I didn't finish this update video. And actually, this looks like I'm almost done, but this is last update, so I need to basically delete everything. I'll move this out here. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna mute this. Well, I mean, I have nothing else to do today, so, and I didn't do this over the weekend like I wanted to, so it seemed like it makes sense to work on it. All right, so I've got my script. Let's go. Test. Hello. Okay. Okay. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. All this video is wrong, but immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop, and then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are the guppies, which come in two flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles that you can pop before they break out. And then there's the eel. This enemy builds on our sprite snake code used for Sector 4's boss. Currently, he swims around randomly, but eventually he'll come after you once you start shooting him. His head is invulnerable, but you can take out his body pieces to kill him. With every piece you take, though, he starts to move faster. Definitely a challenge. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. The electric floor of the first sector makes a return, never mind how it actually works underwater. The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you towards them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade Unity. I just noticed that after the upgrade, they added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary for this effect. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to Ethereal Sanctum. The next sector is a strange place, otherworldly but also creepy. I didn't have all the assets to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets in this sector. Most notably are these crystal clusters. It took a while to get the right shapes, but then I used a combination of additive and alpha transparent shaders of similar color to give it this illusion of reflective transparency. Crates in this sector are also crystal in this emerald green color. Both required a new sound that I threw together in SFXer. We'll see if Paul or Stevie can improve it. Aquatic Reservoir has a little more to do with puzzles and tuning, but mostly I'll be working on the next sector, Ethereal Sanctum. Stay tuned to see this beautiful and creepy new area and probably some other new surprises. As always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and join us on Twitch. I'm streaming this on Twitch right now, in fact. Join us on Twitch nearly every weekday as we develop the indie game Legend 3D. I think that was pretty good. I didn't need to do any edits. Now let's do some compression. Oh yeah, EQ. Let's see. 5. Did I make it? No. For some reason, you can't make presets for the EQ. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. I guess I'll play through the speakers. The main enemy are the guppies, which come in 2 flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles. Alright, shut up. Let's see here, where are... I'm gonna do a compressor and a limiter. I think that's what we had. Yeah. $122. Oh, look at that. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir. Okay, I had to listen to it and to chop it up now. I guess I can put on some music. This is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. All this video is wrong, but immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around. I should get that. Oh, what's in my... Which one has an attachment? How the fuck do I download this? Download. Okay. Let's see. Around a Immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a longer break. There. You move around a tiny bit slower and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are the guppies. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are the guppies, which come in two flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles that you can pop before they break out. And then there's the eel in bubbles that you can pop before they break out. Weird echo there, but... And then there's the eel. This enemy builds on our sprite snake code used for Sector 4's boss. Currently he swims around randomly, but eventually he'll come after you once you start shooting him. His head is invulnerable, but you can take out his body pieces to kill him. With every piece you take, though, he starts to move faster. Definitely a challenge. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. The electric floor of the first... challenge. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex. This sector is full of... The electric floor of the first sector makes a return, never mind how it actually works underwater. The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and... Oh, this has audio. System that reads as a vortex, and it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade Unity. I just noticed that after the upgrade, they added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary for this effect. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly, but also creepy. I didn't have all the assets to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets in this sector of reflective transparency. Crates in this sector are also crystal in this emerald. Hey everybody, it's... can improve it. Aquatic Reservoir has a little more to do with all right, let me put this here, turn this on. Hey everybody, it is Jeff. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log up. Development. The 3D development log update. Update what? The development log update 17. Last few weeks. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. Last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called... Okay, this one is... Where is my... There's an aquatic environment. There's aquatic enemies. There's aquatic puzzles and hazards. Oh, that's long. That is the wrong button. Polish. God damn it. And then what next? I guess I need to replace this whole thing. Take a little tour. Little tour. Little tour. Let's take a little tour. Let's take a little tour. A little tour. A little tour. Take a little tour. Take a little tour. A little tour. Tour. Immediately entering the which takes place underwater. Take place underwater. Oh my god. This one really that short? What is this? You move around a tiny bit slower. Oh, music. Pause. Wait, is that it? The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly, but also... Oh, here's... Aquatic reservoir has a little... Alright. Very short. 3 minutes. Perfect. Now it just needs video. Shit. Let's look at it. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. Immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit. You move underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. Starting with our where'd the enemies go? What? Nubs, the next sector is a strange place. What the around randomly, but eventually he'll come after you once you start shooting him. His head is invulnerable, but you can take out his body pieces. God damn it, I lost fucking lost a whole section. Where did that audio go? Take me into this. How do I get that back? Maybe if I do this, copy, paste. And then this sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles. It would actually be near impossible if I didn't have... They added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary. The next sector is a string. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex. Thank you. happened to upgrade Unity. I just noticed. Oh, there's more. Combination of additive and alpha transparent shaders of similar color to give it this move faster. Definitely a challenge. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... The next sector is a strange place. Not done, I moved on to... The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly, but also creepy. I didn't have all the assets to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets in this sector. Most notably are these crystal clusters. It took a while to get the right shapes, but then I used a combination of additive and alpha transparent shaders of similar color to give it this illusion of reflective can improve it. Aquatic Reservoir has a little more to do as we develop the indie game. This on Twitch nearly every weekday as we develop the indie game Legend 3D. Every weekday as we develop the indie game Legend 3D. I never know how to... The indie game Legend 3D. The indie game Legend 3D. Ship it! What if I put this out without any actual video? E. Whatever. It's just an update. And I want to take a break. Immediately entering the sector, you can tell water music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. Right. God. Okay, that's how that happened. I hit that button that normally affects text areas, but apparently... Alright. Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. Let's see. There are a couple of clips. Let's do. I mean, I have to figure out what day that was. I don't do my log anymore. Holy shit, it's September? Well, this is a shitty calendar. Let's see, I would have been doing that on the 27th or the 28th.
This course didn't enough.
Oh, is this when the stream died? All right. Wow, oh, was it the previous week? God damn it. Like 20. Alright, maybe it's the next day. A third of the way, but here. These in. On the goals. Was it the week before? No. This fucking thing. Let's change radial. Alright, so the 22. Maybe I'll just throw the whole thing in there. It's actually a bad idea. Something like change duration. Hey, this is different. Okay. Wow, I haven't done this since. Where's the fucking dialogue? The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly in and are taken back to your last. So part of that. Alright, where would I have done the map for this? That would have been a long time ago. Can I scrub? Here. Nope. That's $8.09. Do I? Oh, I can kind of scrub through here, right? I like it's fast. Huh? Yep, I'll grab that. development log update 17. Last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. Last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. For the upgrade, they added orbital velocity. It would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex. And it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade Unity. I just noticed that after the upgrade, they added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary for this effect. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... Let's see, I'll do this section, and I haven't done a whole lot of these time lapses in these videos for a while, so let's see, that was... Well, definitely that video. Alright, so I need a build to record the rest of the video. I might as well place them all. Uh-oh. That was lucky. I don't remember that feature before. Guess I should check them before I do a build. Hmm. It's not marked as a room entity. How come these ones aren't pulling me? Do you like this, seeing the music in the menu bar? Oh, hey. Where's Daniel? I guess I'll close this. Oh, damn. Sector's totally unbalanced. I think... Okay, cool. Fuck these guys. Alright, I think that's everything. This is gonna take a little while. Oh, hey, gamer. It's supposed to be a week, but I think, I spent 2 weeks, and it still needs work. So, I'm hoping the rest of the sectors are not as, time-consuming. This one's weird, though. It's underwater, so I think it makes sense that takes a long time. I thought I would had chat open when I was playing, but I did not. Now I gotta wait because I can't really do the rest of this edit until this is done. Maybe I'll get a snack. I'll be back. It's done. Why didn't anybody say anything? I guess you can't see it. Aquatic Reservoir has a little more to do with puzzles and tuning, but mostly I'll be working on the next sector, Ethereal Sanctum. Stay tuned to see this beautiful and creepy new area and probably some other new surprises. As always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and join us on Twitch. I'm streaming this on Twitch right now, in fact. Join us on Twitch nearly every weekday as we develop the indie game Legend 3D. Okay, so this sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. I have a lot of puzzle footage, because I didn't really do them yet. And I died a lot. Kind of a puzzle room. Wasn't a very good puzzle. I mean, it's not done yet, but this sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. The electric floor of the first sector. Electric floor, let's get some electric floor. There was one where I was looking at it. Entirely new. The electric floor of the first sector makes a return. Never mind how it actually works underwater. Electric floor of the first sector makes a return. Never mind how it actually works underwater. The most interesting. Oh yeah, I got stuck. The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you towards them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and... Did none of them suck me in on that? The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you towards them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade you. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. The electric floor of the first sector makes a return, never mind how it actually works underwater. The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you towards them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade Unity. I just noticed that after the upgrade, they added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary for this effect. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly, but also creepy. I didn't have all the assets to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets in this sector. Most notably are these crystal clusters. It took a while to get the right shapes, but then I used a combination of additive and alpha transparent shaders of similar color to give it this illusion of reflective transparency. Crates in this sector are also crystal in this emerald green color. Both required a new sound that I threw together in SFXer. We'll see if Paul or Stevie can improve it.
Boop, 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 boop. Alright, what's this one?
Starting with our nubs, they...
Alright, got some floating nubs in here somewhere.
Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are... Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main... In this area, the main enemy are the guppies, which come in two flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles that you can pop before they break out. And then there's the eel. Where they break out. And then there's the eel. This enemy builds on our sprite snake code used for Sector 4's boss. Currently he swims around randomly, but eventually he'll come after you once you start shooting him. His head is invulnerable, but you can take out his body pieces to kill him. With every piece you take, though, he starts to move faster. Definitely a challenge. Immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled, and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny... that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. Stop. And then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. To get moving from a stop, and then you have the enemies. The enemies. Stop, and then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop. And then you have the enemies. From a stop, and then you have the enemies. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of water music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop, and then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are the guppies, which come in two flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles that you can pop before they break out. And then there's the eel. This enemy builds on our sprite snake code used for Sector 4's boss. Currently he swims around randomly, but eventually he'll...
I think that's everything. Alright, let's run through it. Are you talking about the snapping, or how it always empties or fills the gaps? I guess that's what it is, filling the gaps. I think I'm okay with that. Where necessary, I insert a gap, and then I can kind of control that. I'm more frustrated with, like, not being zoomed in enough to get the right edge, mouse over or whatever. And there's definitely some other things that bother me, but let's do a run through and see if it's done.
Hey everybody, it is Jeff, and this is the indie game Legend 3D development log update 17. The last few weeks have been spent putting together a very unique new sector called the Aquatic Reservoir, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. Immediately entering the sector, you can tell you are now somehow underwater. The screen is a little warbly, open space is less clear, seaweed waves back and forth, and there are lots of bubbles. If that's not enough, the sound effects are muffled, and you have this underwater music that we're listening to. You move around a tiny bit slower, and it takes a bit of momentum to get moving from a stop, and then you have the enemies. Starting with our nubs, they can't really swim, so they just float around. In this area, the main enemy are the guppies, which come in two flavors. One moves up and down, and the other that moves left and right. They sometimes come out of spawners in giant bubbles that you can pop before they break out. And then there's the eel. This enemy builds on our sprite snake code used for Sector 4's boss. Currently he swims around randomly, but eventually he'll come after you once you start shooting him. His head is invulnerable, but you can take out his body pieces to kill him. With every piece you take, though, he starts to move faster. Definitely a challenge. This sector is full of puzzles, some more complex versions of previous puzzles, some entirely new. The electric floor of the first sector makes a return, never mind how it actually works underwater. The most interesting hazard of this sector, though, is the vortex. These happen in certain rooms, sometimes several at once, and pull you towards them. If you get too close, you get sucked in and are taken back to your last save point. I spent a whole day getting a particle system that reads as a vortex, and it would actually be near impossible if I didn't happen to upgrade Unity. I just noticed that after the upgrade, they added orbital velocity on particles, which was basically necessary for this effect. That wraps up this sector. Even though it's not done, I moved on to... The next sector is a strange place. Otherworldly, but also creepy. I didn't have all the assets to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets in this sector. Most notably are these crystal clusters. It took a while to get the right shapes, but then I used a combination of additive and alpha transparent shaders of similar color to give it this illusion of reflective transparency. Crates in this sector are also crystal in this emerald green color. Both required a new sound that I threw together in SFXer. We'll see if Paul or Stevie can improve it. Aquatic Reservoir has a little more to do with puzzles and tuning, but mostly I'll be working on the next sector, Ethereal Sanctum. Stay tuned to see this beautiful and creepy new area and probably some other new surprises. As always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and join us on Twitch. I'm streaming this on Twitch right now, in fact. Join us on Twitch nearly every weekday as we develop the indie game Legend 3D.
Ship it. Now what do I do with my day? I'm guessing the audio is kind of doubled, isn't it? How's it sound? Because you can hear it coming out of my speakers as well as direct. Does it add kind of a reverb effect? I don't actually know. Play some music. I guess I'll put these on. Hey, what? Did I? What? What is going on? Did I? Oh, that's what it was. What's going on with you, Josh? Oops. See, I need to make a new board. Reservoir. Reservoir. How do you spell it? Reser, okay. Whatever the fuck this is. Oh yeah, weekend, sort of weekend, fake weekend.
Hey, war, which takes place underwater. Let's take a little tour. Fold and you have these happen in otherworldly but also creepy. I didn't have all the
720. I mean, can it do a different resolution? I don't know why it's set to something else. I think it's based on the first
Hey everybody,
image you use or something. I don't know. Whatever, it can be 720, I guess.
That's to start the map, but I started on some of the special assets.
Okie doke. Beep boop. See, this is fun to do by hand. Programming, why not? Any other suggestions? Yeah, I've kind of started it. C#, good one. Let's see, is that a good thumbnail? Yeah, I like that one. Let's take it to the old TIG source forums where they all ignore me. How do I? Oh, I need to log in. Oh. I don't know my password. Oh, I do. Let's see. Whoops. No, I would like to save those changes. This is something here. Something clever. What do I say? Do I say anything? Did I spell it right? No, Daniel today. Daniel X Moore. Alright. Well, I'm done. This is super useful. The all the editor stuff is on GitHub. It's especially useful for doing like Unity editor extensions because you can either see how they do things or copy their code to do your own implementation or just see how things work. I haven't really needed to get into it deep, but it's been helpful. I've got this new thing. Actually, let's see if I can... Where are these stored again? No. Unity. Hub. Editor? Sure. Yes, I will finally get to change this. I mean, honestly, I don't really barely even need awake. But here's the thing. I made a thing called auto behavior. Alright, let's see if this works. Okay, so one of the annoying things about Unity, and when you're making new scripts, let's create a component here. I call it behavior, not with the U. I don't know, should I spell it that way? Let's try it again. That I don't get. Alright, so what I've done is if you add new fields, the editor will automatically populate them with some basic rules. So if it's not set, it checks to see if there's that type of component on the current object, because that's usually what you want. It's really frustrating to whatever. And usually to deal with this, you would do like, okay, well, I know it's going to be on this one, so I'll do private camera, and then on a wig, I'm going to do camera, get component, it's just kind of this hassle. But then because it's private, you can never really change it, even though you usually don't want to, but like to encourage more kind of reusable, composable stuff, it might as well be. So here I can just define it publicly, and then as soon as I go over here, it'll automatically populate it. If it's not populated, I can set it with something else, it'll leave it alone. Then the other thing is, often I end up wanting to reference a component on a child object, because this is the sort of like main object that has all the logic, and it needs to reference, like, this is common, the sprite renderer on a child thing. So the other thing that it does is sprite renderer. It will, and this is specifically for in the case of children, it will actually use the name that you specified for that field and look for a child with that name, and then look for that component. So if you look back here, it set it to that. So that's another common convention. So I'm basically trying to add some naming conventions and then automating some of the references, because it is such a pain. I mean, it's like a little thing, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I forgot to wire it up, and so it's not just the time it takes to like find a thing and drag it across the screen and drop it in the thing, which sometimes is like buggy, but then like if you forget to do it, you hit play and it like compiled, and you see an error, and then you have to, so it actually all kind of adds up. There's also a another feature, which is so I need to fix it though, because the multi-editing stuff is, if I create something that starts with the word parent, then it'll look for that component on the parent and automatically set it. That's another common thing. So that's like local references, and I'm probably going to end up doing, I'm starting another prototype project here, and then I'm going to probably apply some of the patterns that I developed back to refactoring Indie Game Legend when it's done, or closer, I don't know when. And what else? I was going to do some other stuff too, where if you want to reference certain assets, it'll use the name of the asset to automatically assign it. So if I had like an audio clip, I haven't implemented this yet, but let's say I had like folder, sounds, and then like I threw a sound in there. This kind of encourages better naming. So now if I wanted to, because normally if you want to reference a sound for whatever reason, as a one-shot or whatever, you have to get a reference to it, and so it's like every object has a reference, and so you're like setting all these references. It's really frustrating. So my new plan is to have it support something like this, where if I do audio clip, SFX, and then the basically it'll match for the last, it'll match this against the last name of an audio clip resource, and then if I go back, it'll automatically assign that resource, and then I can do that for other things like sprites and stuff like that. Just some like helpful like workflow things. And it's all pretty easy. It uses reflection, but the but it's not in I guess it was great to realize that I didn't have to do this in game in runtime,
because it can just happen in the editor, because you almost always, because it's basically setting a property, and you can do that in the editor. So it uses reflection, which doesn't work in all compile targets, but it will always work in the editor. So pretty sweet little system. And then I was trying to come up with something for dealing with like globals, and I think I just have a more disciplined singleton approach, like having a single singleton that then references other global singletons like the game manager and the player and whatever else, is what I'm going to try with this one. Oh, but I wanted to do something where that's then assigned in your components as context. So basically treat the concept as like context. And I tried to get fancy with it, but I ran into too many problems, so it's not that big of a difference between what I do now with like global singleton thingies. What else? I could try and do this sound effects thing. I've got like a couple hours. It's weird, I'm using a combination of like the Unity reflection, serialized objects, and then the C# reflection. So this is like a high level thing. It gives me an object reference, but it doesn't tell me the type, so I need the C# one for that. Let's do parent component. The property name is gonna, I think, be the like display name. So maybe that was, oh, maybe not. Child example. Oh, no, yeah, no, I meant field. Monofield.
frequency, so it's going to be maybe a little harder to get to. Oh, field type. Field type is what I want. Alright, so there's like an asset database thing. Find assets. What the hell? Goods. Names, labels, or types. So for example, test asset is the name of an asset. Used in the filter string can be specified as a subsection. For example, the test asset example can be mapped using test, but I want the, we'll see what happens. I will hard code it to start. Is it case sensitive? Let's see if we can get anything though. Is that an empty string? Nope, it's not. Then there's asset database, get asset. Somewhere we have a good. Then I need to do it to acid path. Let's just start with that. It's not case sensitive. Okay, so even though this is hard-coded, we'll see if this works. Ah, it worked. So now we just need to... How does this go again? Okay. Seems like every time I use this, it wants something different, but... I guess I could just... Luna in your back, what is up? I don't know, where'd you leave? Okay. Let's rename this to test sound, remove that reference. Okay. Close test sound. Look at that. Here's editing video, particles, been all the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I finished. That's maybe one of the quickest videos, update videos I've done. And I posted it, and you know, I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm out of stuff to do. I mean, obviously I could work on the sector, but it's a holiday, so normally I'd hang out with Daniel on Discord. He's not around, so I started working on this auto behavior script that uses reflection to automatically do wire up references on components, because that's very frustrating and stupid. So this is nice. I'm independent too, so I didn't even know that it was a long weekend until yesterday. Let's see, I was gonna do this for sprites as well. I'll grab a sprite from Indie Game Legend. Sprites. Let's do a multi. Yeah. It is a sprite. Multiple. Blah, 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 blah. This doesn't matter because it's not really a real thing, but I have to edit this. All right. So now there's this sprite, and sprites are weird because they turn into this like these other assets, which these are assets, but the sprite, this is the sprite. So, or you know, these are sprite. I don't know. Let's see how I can reference those. Basically the same thing. Public sprite. Bub. Is he gonna pick Bub 1 or Bub 2? Neither. What have I named it? Okay. So sprites are maybe a little trickier. Let's see if it finds anything. It found something. Oh, maybe it's the load the main asset at path. Oh, because the path. Yeah. Let's see. Load all assets. Load all assets at path. I mean, I guess in this case, I'll just pick the first one. So there's Bob. It doesn't. Tigl3d. This one will work though, right? Pub 0. Oh, it would work if I set this to 1. Alright, so is there a way I can let's see, load asset path of type. Load asset that path. Goes. Alright, so now what happens if we were to call it sprite 1? Does that? Because it converts it to the file name. Okay, yeah, so it's always going to just give me. Oh, I forgot I need to unset it. Let's see. Well, that's often going to be the case, and if it's not the right one, clicking it then takes me so I can pick a different one. Though if it was an array of sprites, it would be nice for it to... give me all of them. I don't think it counts as a... I think this means I can't go by this serialized property. Well, I will not go too much deeper into that one for now. I have some other ideas though. For example, right, this editor. All right, custom editors. And have it do the normal. Let's see, how do you do that? wanted the default editor GUI. Draw default inspector and then some button shit. So here's the idea. First we'll do this. Make sure it works with the default inspector. And then we'll make a button. That does nothing. The idea was to look at this guy and see if there's any things called editor foobar. And so this way it'll be really easy to add buttons to any mono behavior or auto behavior without having to be like, oh, I have to go and make an editor class and everything just to add like a single button. I can use reflection on all of these to be like, oh, is there a method that starts with editor? And then it'll make like a foobar button. So alright, so let's get in some target get type. Get methods. Where's the proper? Like C# specific. Binding flags is the fuck is in reflection? Of course. No methods, are you serious? I can't get the right. Like if it's not child example, then okay, it's a child example. Child example has, oh, it's not public. Duh. Okay. Oh, it is listed though. Editor foobar. Well, I mean, as long as that works. Foobar. So now they need to be invoked, which means I think I can just do something like this. Method invoke target. Foobar. 2. That's cool. Quick and easy editor buttons. What else? Maybe it should start with inspector. Make it stand out with an underscore. I'll just do editor for now. Alright, well that's super cool. Easy buttons.
maybe that's enough of auto behavior. Man, what else could I do? I guess play with the singleton idea. Personal, off topic. Like what? I'm down. My brain is just all work though. Oh, that's Discord? Oh, right, because I'm in voice chat. I mean, I have a hard time telling the difference. Like, I'm not sure what makes mine not seem like a homeless person. I sleep on it, and so it gets kind of weird. I have to, part of it is, beard oil. And sometimes blow drying it. You can blow dry it to straighten it, to give it volume or direction. Yeah. I mean, obviously brushing it, getting a good beard brush. Like one of these. Helps. But like I said, I sleep on mine, so that's usually not always enough. Well, I guess if I take a shower, I don't know. I don't totally understand it, but I guess I'm doing all right. No, there's no like product in it other than beard oil, which is more of like a conditioner. I was conditioning it too, but I kind of got lazy. It's still pretty good though. I'm guessing that's what you mean by slime. Shampoo for babies. Oh, because shampoo for babies is shampoo and conditioner, yeah. Yeah, I have a face scrub, and I kind of just like scrub that in there too, so I don't really do like a
shampoo thing. Maybe now and then. Yeah. Some people have... what? I remember, I think when my beard was shorter, getting longer for the first time, it kind of itched, but not for very long. I think part of that is, I don't know. My biggest concern is like ingrown hairs. Because my skin tends to do that. I have big pores, but, so my beard brush is actually really strong, so it's not really good for sensitive skin. But and my face wash is like exfoliating, and that's helped. And then I think the beard oil. It's a journey, man. I was like, it took me a long time to figure out how to like do a beard, and I'm still figuring it out. How long is your beard? I mean, I barely leave the house, and my hair grows very fast. So it's very easy for me to just do it by accident, and so I just figured I would do it intentionally. Which is generally a good idea, is to be intentional about things. Mine does this flipping thing, and originally it was because I would go like this, but I don't do that all the time and it still flips. And so I had to work against that flip. Thinking about that global context thing.
see if Shazal wants to join here. Here, we'll have a guest on our stream.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I'm actually streaming, I guess.
Exciting. Are you on Twitch? I'll go check it.
Yeah. I was working on a video update, and then I finished it and I put it up. So now so then I just started digging around. I have an hour left, so I was like, oh, I'll see who's on the Discord.
Sense, I like the beard. It's intense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is.
I like Unity.
You know, it's a tool. You know what I really like? I mean, Unity was the first environment that I was like, this is the paradigm. Because I used I did a lot of API, like high level APIs, kind of like some of the stuff that exists for 3JS, like 3JS, but for like C#. So it's kind of like the Unity API, but just the API without the editor. So it's like you have a camera, you can create meshes, and you can, you know, do it all programmatically.
Like every engine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically everything was kind of like that. And then Unity had their editor and introduced the hierarchy concept.
The scene tree, you mean?
Yeah, the scene tree, which seemed really kind of an, you know, it's not, it seemed kind of new, like I'd never seen it before.
I don't think it is. I've read about it in like the kind of doomy years almost. Like it's definitely something that's been around for a while. Because the whole BSB, like from the era of,
well, that's different.
Like, software.
That's different.
Well, I mean, sorry, but like the way to design to like trim what's visible and what's not visible was done around the scene tree, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, not the scene tree. Well, so it's the Unity scene hierarchy is not the same thing as the scene tree used for rendering.
I mean, it has the same thing because a scene tree is basically a tree where each node has a transform, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I guess you're right. So they bundled that up with something that lets you add extra metadata to every node.
Yeah, like I would say the huge leap for Unity and Unreal Engine is just the UI that lets you kind of do things visually and like while it's running too. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I also appreciated too that they had the component model, you know, it's kind of like mix-ins, which was because everybody was doing class-based stuff and you'd have all these like super deep hierarchies. And of course you still can, but you don't really need to if you can kind of mix in these components, which can sometimes be very general. So it's like a pretty, I found it to be a pretty great paradigm.
Yeah. I think it's an artifact of the ECS system, the whatever it's called, entity control system. But it turns out the way they implemented it actually doesn't do the same vectorization you'd expect from it. So like the newest upcoming Unity beta actually has a different implementation of it, but it still has the same kind of end user experience. So like each behavior is like a separate system and it loops over one system at a time essentially, which allows the CPU to vectorize it very efficiently because you're doing the same kind of logic for each element at a time.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a competing model. I mean, you can do one or the other, or you can do both. And it's confusing that they have the language of components and stuff in them.
Yeah.
But the way I think everybody, because I was also interested in that, there's a library called Entitas, which is kind of like a third-party entity component system.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, its whole thing is like kind of you don't have to create as many game objects and you can kind of use them to interface with it's sort of like you have an underlying simulation. It's almost like the ECS is sort of like the server model. And then your typical game objects is almost like your view representation of it in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to get into that stuff, but I'm still...
It's really cool. I think the thing that sold me on it, once upon a time I saw someone do some benchmarks on like properly vectorized ECS versus kind of object oriented, and the performance difference was like 300x or something. It was like absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I also like it because they start, you know, doing things that way. The way a lot of people use that in modeling time and stuff can give you a lot more determinism. I mean, you can, just using Unity physics. I'm looking forward to basic like physics stuff in that model, because basically you can't really use, the way people are doing is, again, they'll have like regular game objects with physics stuff like colliders, and then they, when there's a collision, they send that event into the ECS system. And so it's sort of like they're not modeling the physics in the ECS world because they want to use the Unity stuff. So I mean, a lot of basic stuff you can just you re-implement, but I'm waiting for somebody to do that, because
I mean, there's like a very big ecosystem of people build stuff in Unity. Just like, it's really hard to tell what's good and what's worth it, because a lot of them are pretty expensive, and it's like you try it for a while and then it looks great, and then you kind of run into a dead end and you end up building it yourself anyways, and you just throw away like $300 or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't spent that much money on any one thing, but the I have not seen like ECS is such a new kind of beta feature that I haven't seen any like anything in the asset store really built around it yet. Maybe there is.
I think a lot of things also kind of rely implicitly on like notification-based systems, which don't really work well with ECS, like as you mentioned. So yeah, it's weird.
What are you not doing?
I was gonna work, but it's late, so that's me not.
Client project.
The VIP node stuff.
Oh, okay.
My Ethereum project.
Yeah, Ethereum.
I'm doing a bunch of travel later this week, so I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff done earlier in the week, so I don't feel bad about it.
Ethereum.
Indeed. I guess I should try your game on Linux again. I should try it on this new Steam Play stuff. Have you seen that?
Heard about it. Is that all the driver stuff?
So basically, they took Wine and they added some modifications to it, and they like maintain an in-house QA'd whitelist of games. Hang on a sec. All right. Yeah. So basically, the thing with Wine is traditionally it requires a lot of modifications for every game. Like you have to tweak it to make it work properly. And basically, Valve released their own kind of built-into Steam version where they do all the tweaking for you. For each game has like their own built-in QA stuff.
Yeah.
So they have a bunch of games that are guaranteed to work as like a native experience, essentially using their built-in Wine thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
But they have a checkbox that lets you try it with arbitrary games, so I could try it with your game. I think generally Unity games should just work as well. There's some like overhead, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, so I guess that would mean that, so how would that work with like would you use like a Windows build then, or?
Yeah, so like basically lets Windows games work on Linux without messing around too much.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, ideally you should still make a Linux build, but you know, barring that, it's a good secondary option. Oh, the other cool thing is they're gonna track which games get played on Linux even through the Wine thing, and they're gonna appropriately attributed to like Linux. So the game devs will see how many people are actually trying to play their game on Linux.
Yeah. Well, so what I probably am going to do, because I was like, well, I should be able to do Linux because it should be easy. It's Unity. But I just don't want to support it, right? Because I barely want to support Windows, but even though that's like the majority. But so if I say, if this is like, oh, this is like a good enough way to play it, that would be nice.
I mean, I don't think it'll require any more support than Windows, but like, I think at the end of the day, the thing a game dev will be worried about is it going to affect my reviews, right? I think that's the real fear. Is like if you do a kind of a half-assed experience and people start rating you down for it.
But I mean, who writes reviews based on the Linux build?
I see. I think for Linux, you probably don't have much to worry about. Like, but I don't know.
Yeah. I do have to check my Windows builds because like the majority of people that play are Windows. But I think I also heard Steam will support, like if people run into support like Linux specific stuff with this, then you can send them to Steam support as opposed to you handling the support, and that's really appealing.
If they officially whitelist your thing, then they handle the QA for you, which is really cool.
So I'd have to get whitelisted.
Yeah, which I think basically, like, I think they're being fairly open right now. Like, I mean, you haven't launched yet, but if you were to reach out, they'll probably happily add you to that list.
Yeah, I should get in on that.
Or, you know, make a Linux build. Your last one worked great. You just needed a...
Well, we don't know that for sure because, you know, you gotta look at every possible...
No, it's not that bad anymore. Like,
I mean, that's my hope, and I hope so, but there's always those edge cases. There's always something, right?
Well, here's what you do. You make a proper 64-bit build, you tweet it out to like Linux people, and just see how many of them have problems. I think like true. 5% maybe, probably less.
I was certain it was a 64-bit build, too.
I'm watching you do it.
This is a different project, but I'm looking because I don't think I changed whatever the default setting is.
I think yeah. Because you're...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, there it is.
I must not have checked that.
I don't know what the hell Universal is, but maybe that's good. I've never tried that.
Yeah, that's
It'll be twice as big, but that might be worth it if you want to reduce... I'm happy to try it if you want to send me a build.
I mean, I'll do the 64, obviously. This isn't the right project, but... Actually, I'll do that right now. I'll go open that project.
So in my opinion, the only reason to do 32-bit these days is if you're building for a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, interesting.
Because that's like a lot of the stuff that I build. Like for example, SSH chat, I do builds for Raspberry Pi, especially. So those I do smaller because they use a lot less RAM and all that kind of stuff. And also, I don't think you can even do 64-bit Linux in Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi is ARM.
Yeah.
Let's see. I should do a Linux build. All right.
I like how it's built all and there's no Linux. Do you have to enable it?
Well, that's a custom menu. It's like
So
a custom default settings for everything. So I'll add one for Linux once I know that it works. This is annoying.
yeah, the one thing that was really impressive to me, I tried playing on my laptop and like because it's Unity, it like maxed out everything and started heating up instantly. It was kind of great. It's like it's such a simple game. Like if you built your own engine, it would use almost no resources. But because it's Unity, it's just like chugging along a little bit.
Might have been because I turned off like any kind of frame rate cap, like VSync.
That could be too. That's fine.
Yeah, I've been noticing people's screenshots, their frame rates are like 300 something. Oh, Jazz, you use the build all button. Jazz in chat. Jazz is helping with this project.
Good Jazz.
Yeah. Oh, Jazz, I gotta show you this cool stuff I did. All right, so I'll do this build. We'll see what happens. I don't even have a place where I would put it. Linux. Okay, never mind. I guess.
Cat server. I'll just.
Yeah, how are you gonna connect to that? I'd have to start ngrok
Local
or
tunnel,
something.
obviously.
Well, local tunnel. So you've used Unity a bit.
Yeah, I built a bunch of like MVP type game. Well, I mean, not even MVP. Just like I had various ideas that I thought were good, and then I started building them out until I got to the point where they were playable, and then I realized they're not good. Which is, I think, what Unity is good for.
Yeah, no, I agree. Or making games, you know, that you ship.
Yeah, like if you get past that hump, and then you're like, well, I already built the MVP, may as well build the rest of it.
I mean, usually it's like start over and architect. It's like building, you know, it's like you have to architect a project a little differently for a bigger project.
Yeah, I was primarily doing VR stuff for a while.
Oh yeah, it's good for that.
But I had one game I really wanted to build. It was this, an economics-driven tower defense game. You're basically this merchant, and you have to build these defenses along your route where you go like buy and sell back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get robbed along the way, and you just try to like buy low and sell high type thing. And then there's like a kind of like overall world economy. I built up a lot of kind of.
Did you ever play? What is it called? Drug Lord. Or the variants. It's like it was
like Mob Wars type thing.
It was like it was. I remember seeing it a lot on TI-83 calculators, but I think there's like a DOS version where it's just like you're in a city. Here are the drugs on the market. Here are the prices. You can buy. You can sell. You can change the city. And if you change the city, you just see different drugs with different prices.
I have not played that.
It is a very simple economics game. Like you start out with debt, or you start out with the option of taking debt from a loan shark, and then you have a bunch of money that you can spend. But then like bad stuff happens. And I remember one of my early game designs was like using that as the core and then building like a whole big simulation around it.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, I'm gonna compress this. I can't use. It's funny when you use like system. I think Windows does this too, but Apple's zip stuff, it like adds Apple specific files in the zip. I'm like, oh, I can't use that for distribution. I look like a noob
or whatever bullshit.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, this isn't even 0.4, but okay, this is something like closer to 0.8. Let's see. What's a way I can do this? Can I do this? Nope. Can I? Let's see. It's 84 megs. I think that's too big for Discord.
Yeah, too big for email.
Your files are too powerful. Well, email, it won't automatically put it into... Where'd it go? Oh, it's uploading very slow. I guess I could show you this too. Jazz, are you there? Because I wanted to show you this too. Let's see. Maybe I lost Jazz. Ooh, a Schwab alert. I love those. Is my stream? Oh shit. Can you hear me?
I can hear you on Discord. I have you muted on the stream. I don't know.
Okay, because the stream was basically, it's like chugging.
Yeah, I can hear you in the stream, but it's lagging by like some amount. Which is normal. Like
no, I'm in the red. Like I'm not sending.
Oh, well, you're still like moving around and stuff, just a little laggy.
I wonder if Discord's like eating up all my bandwidth somehow.
Should I stream myself playing your game while you're streaming? And you can watch my stream while I watch your stream.
I've done that. Yeah. Up. Okay, there we go. There we go. Oh no, almost. Damn it. What's going on with my bandwidth? I just want to send this file and then show you guys some stuff. I guess it could be Rusty, my roommate. Can't imagine what he'd be doing now.
Too much prawn, I guess.
Prawn server. I mean that's download. I mean he could be uploading it.
Yeah, he could be streaming.
He also does Twitch stuff, but I would hear it. I think he's like practicing to actually be a Twitch streamer.
That's fun. What kind of internet do you have?
Google Fiber. It's usually perfect. Right now it is not.
It's also, it seems to do this sometimes around this time. So it might be a typical like evening burst. Throughput issues. Okay, I really want this file to attach. This is really frustrating. It's an 80 meg file.
Could make a BitTorrent, could put it on IPFS, could make a local tunnel. Could use DAT.
DAT, have you played with DAT? Of course you've played with DAT.
I have not, but I've read the docs. I don't know, I really don't see the appeal over like something like IPFS.
Something more all-encompassing, something that solves the problem correctly.
What makes you feel that it's incorrect? Or are you joking
I'm
at our
joking,
earlier
I'm joking.
conversation? I see what you did there.
I wish the stream was still good. I feel like I'm in limbo. $6.35. Oh, I think Jazz is taking off. Anyway. Whatever, I'll show you guys some other time. And yet I still cannot attach the zip file. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see my play now thing?
I think it's lagging too much.
Yeah, I guess you
Say something.
say something.
Yeah.
I'm in the
it's
red
not
still.
good YouTube streaming or something, but I guess you're pretty stuck on Twitch these days. Yeah, you just said you can't touch the zip file, so you're like 2 minutes behind, I think.
I'm actually using Restream, so I'm sending to Restream and then it sends to Twitch and YouTube.
Oh wait, I reloaded it and it seems a little better maybe.
It's a little better, but it just keeps, like right now it says literally 0 kilobytes per second. 590. So I don't know what's going on. Let me see. Ooh, I have wireless headphones I can go explore. Rusty's not even here. Doesn't mean his computer's not doing something.
Well, I got my streaming working, so I'm ready.
Are you streaming?
Not at the moment, but I just tried it for like 3 seconds and it worked. On YouTube though.
Well, I guess my stream is over. It's not. I don't have any bandwidth